You wake up. The day hasn't even begun, yet your heart is already racing, as if dragged by an invisible anxiety. Before your feet touch the ground, your mind is running, chasing after deadlines that no one ever set. This is the silent portrait of modern life. We wake up already immersed in worries, in endless mental lists, in voices that won't stop echoing inside us. But I want you to pause for a moment and imagine this with me. What if there was a single phrase, simple, silent, symbolic, that could completely change the course of your day? I'm not talking about magic formulas or secret knowledge locked away. I'm talking about something more essential. A forgotten key within you, able to open the doors that hurry and stress have closed. The way you wake up reveals far more than you think. It shows not only what you feel, but what you attract. Every awakening is a rebirth. It's the moment you cross the bridge between the dream world, fluid, symbolic, profound, and the concrete world, where you shape what you carry within. In that brief moment, the soul is still sensitive, exposed to the subtle, open to the invisible. And it is there that a secret hides, a secret that can transform the way you live. Most people wake up on autopilot. They rise already reacting to the alarm, to the messages, to the heavy weight of obligations. But there is extraordinary power in interrupting this blind flow, even for a second, to direct your very first gesture of the day, not outward, but inward. This is not about religion, it's about intention, about learning to speak with what lives deep in your own psyche. The unconscious responds through symbols, synchronicities, subtle signs in daily life. And the first phrase you say when you wake up is like lighting a torch, a light that will guide every step that follows. That phrase doesn't need to be spoken out loud. It doesn't depend on sound, but on the truth with which it is felt. It's less a word than a seed. It's as if you were saying to life, I am ready to welcome what I don't yet understand, but that is already on its way to me. And something curious happens when you start your day this way. The unexpected stops being a threat and becomes a path. What looks like chance seems to bend in your favor. The pieces begin to move differently because you are no longer just someone being pushed around by circumstances. You become a magnetic center. You don't manipulate destiny, but you tune into it. It may sound mystical, I know. But remember, the visible world is woven out of the invisible. Life doesn't begin in what is already solid, but in what is still fluid, in what is still only possibility. That's why I want to propose a small experiment. Tomorrow, when you open your eyes, before doing anything else, take a deep breath. Feel life returning to your body and in silence, say to yourself, I accept the hidden beauty in what I don't yet understand. That's just a suggestion. You can create your own phrase. But notice the power it carries. You're not asking, not imposing, not demanding. You're simply opening, simply welcoming. And that gesture of acceptance places you in alignment with forces far greater than what your reason can grasp. And as this video unfolds, I'll show you why this works, what lies beneath these small rituals, and how this simple act can ripple into every area of your life, your relationships, your creativity, your choices, even your emotional healing. But before we go any further, I want you to actively take part in this reflection. Right now, write in the comments, I choose to begin my day in peace. By doing that, you not only start planting this seed within yourself, but you also help spread that energy to others who will come across this video. And if you want to keep diving deeper into these ideas, subscribe here to the channel Mentalidade Inabalável. Together, we explore depth psychology, human behavior, and the invisible mysteries that shape our existence. Not just to think, but to transform. Breathe. The journey is only beginning. Always pay attention to the way you wake up. This moment, seemingly simple, is so much more than a biological routine. It's a threshold, a portal that defines the quality of the rest of your day. If what I've said so far already makes sense to you, write in the comments, "Today, I choose to start differently." Let's see how many of us are ready to turn this invisible key together. How many are willing to awaken in a new way? Have you noticed how the way you start your day shapes so much more than just your mood? It molds your field of perception. It decides what you'll notice, what you'll ignore, and above all, what you will inevitably attract. This is not shallow self-help talk, it's deep psychology. The mental state at the moment of awakening is like the frame of a painting. Everything you experience throughout the day is interpreted through that invisible frame. Think about it. If you wake up with heavy thoughts, "I'm already late. Another exhausting day. I can't take it anymore." Those are rituals too, just negative ones. They hide inside your routine, pretending to be natural, but they slowly poison your perception, coloring everything in grey tones. The unconscious is not just a storage room of memories. It is not a dead archive. It is active, alive, creative. It co-authors your reality. It works with symbols, inner images, patterns that repeat until they shape your life. That's why what you say upon waking is, in truth, the first command you give your unconscious. If the first phrase you say is, "It's going to be hard," the unconscious doesn't question. It doesn't judge, doesn't argue, doesn't debate. It simply obeys. From that moment on, it begins to filter your experiences, invisibly selecting what confirms that expectation. It's like placing tinted glasses over your eyes, colored by your very first words. This is exactly why I propose a symbolic shift here, a silent act, but loaded with intention. It's not a technique to manufacture instant miracles. It's a way of repositioning your center. You stop starting the day from the outside in, reacting to the world's pressures, and begin starting from the inside out, offering presence. And presence is transformative. The phrase you choose upon waking works like an energetic seal, a symbolic mark that sets the tone for your day. It can be something like, "Everything that comes to me today finds me in peace. I'm willing to see beauty in the unexpected. My heart knows the way, even when my mind hesitates." Notice that none of these phrases try to force reality. They don't demand, command, or manipulate. They invite, and that detail is essential. The unconscious doesn't respond to imposition. It responds to permission. It blooms when you open yourself. And when this practice is repeated day after day, something special happens. The phrase stops being just a sequence of words and becomes a symbol. And symbols, as I've always believed, are bridges between who you already are and who you can still become. They're not just reminders. They are living forces. People who adopt this practice often report subtle but significant changes. They begin noticing coincidences they once ignored. They feel calmer in the face of challenges, or they suddenly find clarity in the middle of chaos. Because in truth, it's not the world that changes, it's your gaze. And when your gaze transforms, everything else transforms with it. In the next part of this reflection, we're going to dive deeper into what I call transition rituals. These moments of passage, like waking up, are true psychic gateways, and learning to cross them consciously can open unexpected possibilities. But before we move on, I want you to write in the comments, "My unconscious is my ally." That simple phrase already begins to build a new relationship with the inner forces shaping your life. And if this content is already illuminating your view of the world, don't forget to subscribe to mentalidade inabalable, because this journey isn't just a series of videos, it's an invitation to transform your relationship with yourself, step by step, symbol by symbol, awakening by awakening. Take a deep breath, The portal is open. Let's cross it together. Now, I want you to reflect with me. What phrase do you want to begin saying every morning? Write it in the comments right now. Not as a simple response to this video, but as a silent commitment to yourself, a micro act of inner revolution. Because when you declare it, even in simple words, you've already begun turning the invisible gears of your own destiny. Look closely. Every single day, human beings go through countless invisible rituals, small transitions that may look trivial but carry deep symbolic weight. Waking up is one of these passages. It's the end of a long nightly journey through the unconscious. It's the moment we leave the waters of dreams and step onto the ground of action. That's why I see awakening as a true rite of passage, from shadow to light, from inner to outer, from the silence of the night to the noise of everyday life. But here lies the problem of modern life. Most people wake up as if leaping from an emotional cliff straight onto a conveyor belt. Suddenly they're already running. No pause, no bridge, no ritual, just reactivity. And when there is no ritual, the soul feels lost. The body may be awake, but the spirit remains asleep. That's why this small gesture, pausing, breathing, and speaking a symbolic phrase, is more than poetry. It's depth psychology. It's a reunion with the soul. It's a realignment of consciousness. These silent rituals were never trivial. They are, in fact, the molds of identity. They remind us that we are more than bodies moving on autopilot. We are souls in process, consciousness that needs direction. Take the monks, for example. They wake in silence, with reverence, with mindful breathing. They don't leap out of bed to check messages, nor do they begin the day with complaints. They know that the way one wakes up reflects the way one lives, and you don't need to live in a monastery to apply this to your life. All it takes is 10 seconds of awareness before leaving bed. 10 seconds and a single phrase. It could be something simple like, "Today I don't need to fight, I simply move. May I know how to listen to what this day has to teach me. Even without understanding, I trust." Phrases like these, when repeated with presence, become true anchors. And anchors don't prevent storms from happening, but they keep you from being lost in the middle of them. I used to teach that symbols act like seeds in the soil of the psyche. They don't sprout instantly, but they prepare the inner ground. Ritual repetition is the water that nourishes the seed. Over time, roots grow, and then, quietly, something blossoms, both inside and around you. A new attitude, a new perception, a new energy. And there is something even deeper. When you wake up with this gesture, you activate an archetype that lives within us all, the guardian of the gate. This archetype doesn't cross life carelessly. It chooses how to enter each moment. It protects vital energy, decides what enters, what stays, and what must be left behind. The moment of awakening is precisely that gate. And there you have two choices. Cross it with haste and confusion, or cross it with clarity and intention. A single phrase, spoken with awareness, can be the key to that passage. In the next part of this journey, I'll show you how these morning rituals connect directly with universal archetypes, the hero, the healer, and the sage. I'll reveal how you can activate them at dawn and allow them to accompany you throughout the day. But first, I want to hear from you. Write in the comments, "I choose to walk through my day with intention." That will be your first step in feeling the difference between living on autopilot and living in tune with your own soul. And remember, if you want to go deeper on this path, subscribe to Mentalidade Innerbalance. Here, we're not just talking about psychology. We're practicing the art of turning symbols into life, and life into consciousness. Take a deep breath. The guardian of the gate is already within you. It's up to you to decide how you'll cross. What you share can become a mirror for others. When you write in the comments the phrase you chose to start the day, you're not only affirming, your own commitment, but also inspiring others to reflect on their own awakenings. That's how a simple individual act can light up many lives. Throughout my life, I left behind a map, not of physical territories, but of inner landscapes. Within this map are symbolic figures that represent living forces of the human psyche. They are archetypes, invisible structures that dwell within us all. Among them, three stand out as fundamental companions: the hero, the healer, and the sage. And believe me, they all awaken with you each morning. The difference is whether you invite them to walk beside you or leave them forgotten on the sidelines. When you wake and speak a phrase with intention, you are extending an invitation to one of these archetypes. You are choosing who will step onto the stage of your day. Imagine, for instance, that you wake and say, "Today I act with courage, even in the face of fear." In that instant, you invoke the hero archetype. But don't be mistaken. This hero is not the conqueror out there, not the warrior chasing enemies outside himself. The true hero crosses his own inner abysses. He defeats procrastination, pierces through self-deception, and breaks the cycle of "I'll do it later" to step into the vibration of "Today I choose to go." Now picture another scene. You open your eyes and say, "May I take care of what matters, myself included." Here, you bring forth the healer. This archetype embodies your capacity to restore energy, to set boundaries without guilt, to offer kindness without erasing yourself. When you awaken this healer, you transform not only your relationship with yourself, but also the way you connect with others. And if, upon waking, your phrase is, "Today I listen before I judge, observe before I react," then the sage rises within you. He is broad vision, the silence before the response, the listening before the hasty conclusion. He is the one who prevents you from becoming just another cog spinning in the world's noise. These archetypes are not inventions. They are real structures of the soul. They live inside each of us, waiting for the moment to be summoned. And the more you call them, the stronger they grow, the more present they become in your life. The moment of awakening is like the raising of a curtain. And there you hold the power to decide who will step onto the stage first: fear, hurry, anxiety, or the silent hero, the gentle healer, the attentive sage. The phrase you choose upon waking is your invitation. It is the opening note of the melody that will play all day long. And the most beautiful part is that this choice renews itself every morning. Even when everything feels the same, even when routine insists on repeating its scenes, you have the chance to begin differently. Some mornings the phrase will need to be firm. "Today I respect myself, even if the world doesn't understand." On other days, it will be softer. "I don't need to have all the answers right now." And sometimes it will be as simple as, "Thank you for this new beginning." The central point is choose. Don't wake on autopilot. Don't hand over the first moment of your day to external noise before listening to the voice of your own soul. Because, as I've often said, what you ignore within yourself will eventually become your destiny. If all this feels new to you, don't wait. Start. One phrase, one breath, one glance inward. Because when the soul feels remembered, it responds. And when the soul responds, the unexpected finds its way in. If this message has touched you, write right now in the comments, "Today I chose the tone of my day." That statement may seem simple, but it's a seed planted in the soil of consciousness. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that it's still time to begin again with lightness. There is something profoundly transformative that happens when you listen to yourself before listening to the world. Your inner rhythm shifts. It's as if you stop chasing life and start walking alongside its flow. And it's in that walking that true transformation becomes possible. Take a deep breath. The stage is open. Who will you invite to step in? True transformation doesn't only happen in the big turning points of life. It reveals itself silently and steadily in small gestures filled with intention. The way you wake up is the opening gesture of everything, the first chord in the symphony of your day. But perhaps you wonder, why does this actually work? What is the hidden mechanism behind such a simple practice? The answer is that the unconscious does not operate with the rational logic we use every day. It doesn't respond to linear explanations, but to symbols, images, and repetition. It is the language of the soul. A phrase spoken with intention, repeated each morning, is not just a phrase. It becomes a mantra, a vibrational code that reorganizes your psychic energy. It's as if you were telling yourself deep in your core, "We're in this together." And the unconscious responds. It responds with synchronicities, with subtle signs, with the little miracles many call chance. Have you noticed how some people seem lucky? As if everything flows in their favor. Often, it's not luck, it's alignment. They've learned, consciously or unconsciously, to create small rituals that reorder their energy before even leaving the bed. They don't begin their day putting out fires. They begin by lighting an inner flame. And that flame changes everything. Now join me in a brief exercise. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you can. Imagine you wake up, the world is still quiet. The morning hasn't yet screamed its demands. The air flows gently into your lungs, and before any movement, you declare in silence, "Today I am presence, not hurry." Or maybe, even without knowing what's ahead, I move forward. Or simply, I am here. And that alone is a sacred beginning. That's it. That's enough. You've created a space within yourself, a private inner altar, a place untouched by external noise, where you haven't yet lost yourself to others. This space is your origin, your starting point, your root. Jung once said that the further we go into the external world, the deeper our inner roots must be. Without them, we become like trees blown away by the wind. The phrase you choose each morning is the seed of that root. It anchors you, centers you, reminds you of what truly matters, even when everything around you tries to pull you away from yourself. And understand this, it doesn't mean the day will be light, calm, or perfect. It means that whatever happens, you began from within. And that completely changes the energy you carry into situations. You're no longer just reaction. You are choice. You're no longer merely a reflection of the environment. You are source. Now, I invite you to reflect with sincerity. What was the very first thought you had today when you opened your eyes? Was it fear? Was it exhaustion? Was it hurry? Or was it presence? Acceptance, hope. Write in the comments, "My first thought today was." That simple act of naming already brings light to your unconscious. And if you'd like, choose a new phrase for tomorrow. Who knows? It might just become your new ritual. What you need to understand is that every morning is a doorway. Some people walk through it carrying the weight of yesterday, while others cross with lightness, because they chose to plant a seed of presence before the rush. That is the difference between those who merely survive and those who truly awaken. And if this feels too small, remember, the inner world does not move through grand spectacles, but through repeated, silent gestures, filled with intention. That is how roots take hold. In the next part, we'll dive into something surprising. Modern science is beginning to confirm what Jung intuited decades ago. Today, neuroscience has discovered that when the brain first wakes up, it enters a delicate state called reverse hypnagogia. It's the transition between sleep and wakefulness. In this moment, brainwaves are slower, more receptive, almost like fertile soil, ready to receive seeds. And what you plant in that instant can transform not only your day, but the direction of your entire life. What you choose to plant at waking, a phrase, a mental image, an intention, can blossom throughout the day. It may seem small, but it's not. Because the first thought, the first emotion, the first gesture upon opening your eyes carries a disproportionate weight. It's like taking the very first step on an unknown trail. It doesn't just set the direction, it shapes the entire emotional journey ahead. And the most beautiful part is this: that step can be chosen consciously. Brain imaging research is beginning to reveal something I had long intuited. Affirmations spoken right after waking don't just remain in the symbolic realm. They activate specific areas of the brain. Phrases of courage, acceptance, or presence awaken regions tied to planning, empathy, and emotional regulation. On the other hand, phrases rooted in fear, pressure, or mistrust trigger the alert system, the one that leaves you reactive, anxious, and drained before the day has even begun. This shows us that choosing a morning phrase is not just symbolic, it's also neurological. The unconscious and the body are not separate worlds, they dance together. The language you offer yourself upon waking is like a melody, and your entire system begins to move in a rhythm with it. But it's important to understand, we're not talking about magic words or cookie-cutter formulas. What works is the living symbol, and symbol is the deepest language of the soul. When you wake and silently say, "I accept what comes with lightness," the brain doesn't interpret that as mere words. It records it as permission, as the release of resistance. The body relaxes, the heart opens space, the mind adjusts. And when there is space, the unexpected can enter. That is why this practice must be sincere. It is not enough to repeat a memorized phrase like a robot completing a mechanical task. It has to be spoken with reverence, like someone opening a window to let the light in. True intention is what breathes life into the gesture. Here are a few phrases you can use as inspiration to find your own. Today, I make room for what is real. May my presence be stronger than my fear. Even without knowing, I walk with trust. I welcome what comes without losing myself. Choose the one that resonates most deeply with you, or create your own. It doesn't need to be overly optimistic or fantastical. It simply needs to be honest, because the unconscious recognizes truth, and it only responds to what is truly felt. Now take a moment to reflect. What phrase could you offer yourself tomorrow upon waking? What melody would you choose to guide your day? Write it in the comments as a quiet commitment to yourself. Something like, "Today I walk with clarity," or "I choose to cross this day in peace." By declaring it publicly, you strengthen the seed within you. And here's something fundamental. This gesture doesn't have to be limited to waking up. It can and should expand to other moments. Jung often emphasized the invisible psychological thresholds we cross throughout the day without noticing. The first sip of coffee, the first glance in the morning, the shift between one task and the next, the moment you close your eyes before sleep. Every beginning and every ending carries symbolic weight. Each transition is a small ritual, an invitation to return to the axis of the soul before the rush of the world swallows you whole. These intervals are opportunities to reconnect with your own essence. If you've already felt the impact of this simple act, a phrase, a pause, a breath, imagine how your life could transform if you learned to recognize all the invisible thresholds you cross each day. Because it is not only at dawn that you awaken every time you pause, every time you breathe, every time you remember yourself. In the next part, we'll explore exactly this: How these small rituals can be applied throughout the day, in transitions you may have never noticed, but that hold within them the chance for renewal. Reconnecting with the center, with the self, is not something that happens only upon waking. This symbolic gesture can, and must, spread into other moments of the day. And when you begin to bring this practice into different transitions, something powerful happens. Your life gains rhythm, a pulse from within that doesn't depend on the external world. You stop living as an echo of what happens around you and start creating your own music, a beat born from within. Think about it. How many times throughout the day do you lose yourself in urgencies, in pressures, in distractions? And what if, instead of just reacting, you could transform every transition into a small ritual, an instant of reconnection with your soul? Let me give you a few simple examples. Before opening the door to your workplace, or even before clicking that browser tab that always throws you into chaos, you can pause for just 2 seconds and silently say, "May I not lose myself in urgencies, but remember what is essential." Before a difficult conversation, may I hear beyond the words. Before eating, may this food nourish more than just my body. And before sleep, I release what I cannot control. May the unseen take care of the rest. These phrases are not just pretty thoughts. When spoken with presence, they become miniature sanctuaries. They are like small candles lit amid the darkness of the day. They carve out spaces of awareness in the rush, reminding you that you have a center and that you don't need to lose yourself on the periphery of events. Carl Jung said that the self, the totality of the psyche within us, reveals itself in the gaps, the in-betweens, the intervals. But to perceive it, you must be available. And availability doesn't just happen. It is cultivated. It grows out of repeated small gestures filled with intention. Phrases like these are symbolic seeds. Over time, they take root and bear inner fruit, which naturally reflects in your posture toward life. And here's something curious. When you start practicing this, people around you notice. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. They sense that you no longer react as you used to, that you pause before answering, that you listen differently, that your presence carries a calmness that wasn't there before. This doesn't come from some elaborate technique or sudden transformation. It comes from the silent ritual you made with yourself, many times throughout the day. Waking with a symbolic phrase is just the first step. The true awakening happens when you remember again and again throughout the day that you can begin anew, that you don't need to wait for a major change to adjust your inner climate. Sometimes all it takes is pausing for 10 seconds, breathing deeply and consciously choosing a phrase that brings you back to center. That is the power of micro beginnings. They keep a bad moment from turning into a ruined day. They remind you that you don't need to wait until tomorrow to try again. You can begin again right now, in this very moment. And if this video is already awakening that reminder in you, right here in the comments, my day is made of new beginnings. This isn't just an engagement phrase, it's a symbolic commitment that can become a landmark in your inner process. In the next part, we'll explore an even more transformative dimension of this practice, how these small rituals can profoundly impact your relationships. Think about it. How many conflicts begin before a single word is spoken? Often the tension is already in the air, in the glance, in the energy you bring, in the heaviness you carry from the moment you wake up. That is where this silent ritual gains a new layer of power. It doesn't just reorganize your mind, it purifies the relational field. Jung said, "The way you meet yourself upon waking determines the way you will meet others." Those who wake up at war with themselves inevitably go to battle with the world. But those who awaken in inner alliance become an invitation to peace. And notice, it doesn't take a self-help speech to transform your relationships. Often, Just changing the first phrase you carry inside yourself changes the entire tone of connection. Have you ever noticed how waking up and silently saying, "Today I don't want conflict," can completely alter how you look at someone, how you touch them, how you respond? In the next part, we'll dive deeper into this. How this symbolic gesture can transform the way you connect and relate, especially in relationships that today may feel heavy, tense, or full of unspoken silences. Pay attention to the subtle difference between two phrases. When you say, "Today I don't want conflict," there is still struggle. There is still a shadow resisting. But when you choose to say, "Today I will listen more and react less," something shifts. You are no longer at war with life. You open yourself to the other, to dialogue, to flow. This is where the morning phrase begins to reveal its true power. Over time, it stops being just a sound, just a repeated thought, and becomes the energy you radiate. Because when spoken with truth, it doesn't stay in your mouth. It settles into your body, pours into your gaze, shows in your touch, rests in your silence, and people around you notice, even if they can't explain how or why. Carl Jung reminded us that every relationship is also a symbolic field. It is not just an exchange of words or gestures. It is an invisible interchange of psychic content. You carry what is within you, and you place it into your encounters with others. And this exchange begins before you even see the face of the one before you. It begins in the way you wake up and meet yourself. Think about it. If you wake up with hurry, frustration, or pressure, that is exactly what you bring to the breakfast table, to the first good morning, to the automatic hug. And the other person feels it. Maybe they hide it. Maybe they can't name it, but they feel it. On the other hand, when you wake up with a phrase of presence, openness, and listening, it's as if your whole body announces, "Today, I am truly here." Do you want to see how this translates into practice? Imagine waking up and choosing a phrase like, "Today I leave space for others to be who they are," or even, "I don't need to win. I want to understand." And maybe, "My peace is worth more than the last word." Now, carry that energy into a difficult conversation. Carry it into that silent meeting with someone who has been irritating you. Carry it to the relative who always tests you, to the exchange that usually ends in exhaustion. Do you see the difference? You stop being just a reaction. You become awareness. And the most extraordinary part is that you don't need to wait for the other person to change before you begin. That is the greatest power. Your silent transformation alters the field. Many times, the simple fact that you start differently already makes the other feel, subtly, almost imperceptibly, that something is no longer the same. It's as if you bring a new melody into the room, and the other person's psyche, without realizing, begins to dance to this new rhythm. Jung used to say that the true encounter with another only happens when you have already met yourself. Without that reconnection, relationships turn into nothing more than projection, conflict, and defense. But when you align with yourself upon waking, you create space for authenticity within the bond. That is why the morning moment is so sacred. It is your daily chance to prepare not only your own path, but also the invisible field of all your relationships. And if this video is already opening your eyes to see your relationships with more clarity and depth, I invite you to write in the comments, "Today I start differently," and that changes everything. This simple statement may mark the beginning of a new way of relating. In the next part, we'll enter an even more delicate and necessary dimension. Because yes, there are days when everything feels heavy, confusing, or meaningless. There are mornings when we don't wake with clarity, but with a weight in the chest. Not always for a specific reason. Sometimes it's just accumulated fatigue. Sometimes it's a nameless sadness. Other times it's a void that feels larger than ourselves. And it's precisely on these darker days that the morning phrase ritual becomes more than a gesture. It becomes an embrace. Carl Jung knew that the human psyche is not a straight line. It is made of cycles, spirals, long nights, and slow dawns. And he always warned us about a danger. The danger of wanting to leave the darkness too quickly, of pretending light while still walking through the shadow. The rush to be okay can become a new kind of prison. That's why, on difficult days, the morning phrase doesn't need to be positive. It needs to be honest. You can wake up and say, "Today is hard, but I allow myself to feel." Or, "Even without strength, I will go slowly." Or even, "I don't need to be okay to deserve to exist." This kind of phrase doesn't force light. It opens space for the shadow to be acknowledged. And when the shadow is acknowledged, it loses its power to devour us. In the next block, we're going to explore exactly this theme: how to deal with heavy awakenings, how to use this small ritual to avoid losing yourself on dark days, and how honesty, more than positivity, can become the thread that guides you back to life. There are days when the weight of the world seems lodged in your chest, days when darkness is not a metaphor, but a tangible, silent, insistent sensation. In these moments, the morning phrase practice becomes more than a symbolic gesture. It transforms into an embrace for the soul. When you wake and, with presence, tell yourself something like, "Today, I allow myself simply to exist," or "I choose to welcome myself, even in my exhaustion," something subtle yet profound begins to unfold within you. You stop attacking yourself with impossible demands. You begin to truly welcome yourself. And the psyche, in response, doesn't promise to erase the pain, but it offers space for it to settle. It finds a safe place to breathe. Because pain doesn't come from simply feeling sadness. It arises when we try to turn away from ourselves, when we try to escape something that only needs to be heard, acknowledged, received. Jung taught us that every pain carries a symbolic message. The unconscious, far from being a harsh judge, acts as a patient guide, trying to awaken us to what we have ignored, to what we have stopped listening to within ourselves. By repeating a phrase upon waking, you open a silent channel between consciousness and the unconscious, and in that space, even in silence, you may hear what the pain has been trying to communicate. It's not about fleeing the dark, but about carrying a lantern. And often, that lantern is nothing more than a phrase whispered into the silence of your room, a silent act of courage that says, "I remain, even when it hurts." Don't try to wake every day with strength. Don't force yourself to smile or to be positive when the shadow still weighs heavily. But try, at least, to wake with presence, to wake with attention to yourself. You can say, "Today I simply exist," and that is enough. And little by little, life begins to respond. An insight, a coincidence, an unexpected gesture from someone, not as magic, but as a response to your small act of courage and attention to yourself. The truth is that every small inner gesture reverberates outward. Every phrase spoken with presence shifts the vibration of your day. If you've ever had one of those dark days and still chose to start again right here, even in the dark I lit a light. Your phrase, your presence, may be the breath someone else needs right now, even if they don't realize it. It's the silent strength that spreads effortlessly, simply through the integrity of the act. Now take a deep breath and recall everything we've covered so far. Waking is not just opening your eyes. It is opening a portal, a space between the dream world and the world of action, between the soul's vulnerability and the possibility of conscious presence. Jung saw this instant as sacred. It is here you decide. Will you continue repeating yesterday's patterns, or will you begin from a new place, more conscious, more whole? And the shift can be minimal. A sigh, a phrase, a silent intention, But behind that simplicity lies a revolution, because by waking with presence, you alter the vibration of everything. It spreads through your body, your mind, your encounters, and the world. You stop living on autopilot and begin to live with purpose, even in the smallest things, and it doesn't matter what phrase you choose. What matters is the space you create with it, the listening you offer yourself, the pause you allow, the delicacy of treating yourself as someone who deserves to be welcomed well from the very start of the day. You deserve it, we all do. Maybe tomorrow, when you open your eyes, you'll still feel tired, still carry fear or doubt. But if you have the courage to pause for a moment and say, I am here and I am alive, something already begins to change. Because in that small act, you meet yourself again, and that reunion, as simple as it may seem, is the beginning of everything. You can write in the comments the phrase you choose for tomorrow. Make it a silent commitment to your own soul. Start small. Start now. And notice, every conscious awakening is a new opportunity to change your life, to transform the energy you carry within yourself and toward others. In the final part of this video, we'll gather everything we've explored: awakening, symbol, archetypes, the unconscious, and daily practice. We'll close with a powerful reflection and a question that may change the way you inhabit each beginning. The great truth Jung left us is simple but profound. The soul responds when it is called. It is not impressed by empty words or rushed gestures. It responds to presence, to care, to intention. And that is exactly what happens when you choose to say a phrase upon waking. This small morning gesture is not just a phrase, not just a pretty self-help ritual. It is a silent call to your own psyche, a declaration that you still believe, still want to open, still want to walk, even without understanding everything that lies ahead. When you speak or feel this phrase, something inside you aligns. An invisible thread connects the conscious and the unconscious, who you are with who you may yet become. It is a gesture of silent courage, an act that says, I am here. I am willing. I am ready to be whole. And in that moment, the unexpected begins to reveal itself, not as a noisy miracle or a spectacular twist of fate, but as a series of subtle, serene, precise responses, a coincidence that makes sense, an insight that lights the mind, a gesture from someone you never anticipated. The world begins to reorganize around your presence, because the energy you bring at awakening reverberates into everything around you. Now, the responsibility is yours. It is you who decides the tone of the day, the rhythm of the hours, the inner climate that will spread outward. And to make this practice concrete, I invite you to write in the comments the phrase you choose to begin your days from now on. Or, if you prefer, share the phrase that touched you most during this video. Make it both a silent commitment to yourself and a gift for others who need to reconnect with their own awakenings. And if you truly want this message to multiply, to reach those trapped in haste, fear, or fatigue, send this video to someone who has been waking in the dark, because the strength of the ritual does not lie only in the one who practices it, but in the invisible web of energy formed when we inspire one another. Its impact spreads silently, yet profoundly, like ripples across still water. Now let me share something personal. The phrase I use every morning is simple, yet powerful. My presence is my strength, and my heart is my guide. I say it with intention, with reverence, not as an automatic repetition, but as a gesture that reminds my soul I am responsible for my center, I am the guardian of my own portal, and you can do the same, finding the phrase that resonates with your own heart. Comment below. The phrase I say transforms me. Let life read your comment as a sign that you are ready. Ready to align, ready to open, ready to allow yourself, even at the next awakening. And remember, When you start the day differently, the day also begins differently with you. Each dawn is an opportunity for rebirth, a chance to reframe what came before, to create space for what has not yet arrived. And that space is yours by right. It is there that the unexpected meets intention, that silent archetypes awaken, that the unconscious works in your favor, and that life begins to conspire gently yet powerfully for you to become more whole, more present, more alive. So as this video ends, do something concrete. Breathe deeply, feel your body, choose your phrase. Notice how it pulses within you. Write it in the comments, leave your signal for the world, click like, subscribe to mentalhealing, because here we will keep exploring the soul, psychology, archetypes, and the silent gestures that transform life from the inside out. Share this video, comment, and make your awakening a ritual of silent revolution. Because in the end, as Jung said, it's not the great events that transform life, but the small gestures filled with intention. And your very first gesture of the day, the phrase you say when you open your eyes, is the greatest gift you can give yourself. So begin now, and allow yourself to see, feel, and live consciously. Your soul is ready, and the world is waiting for your presence.